Hi everyone, if you're listening to this, chances are you're someone who cares about longevity, strength, and vitality, not just today, but for decades to come. Muscle isn't just about aesthetics, it's about function, independence, hormonal health, and resilience against disease. Today, I want to walk you through 6 proven habits backed by neuroscience, endocrinology, and physiology that can eliminate muscle loss and help you build a stronger, more durable body over time. Let's begin with the foundationing. What muscle really means for your life. When we talk about eliminating muscle loss, the first and most powerful tool we have is resistance training. This isn't a fitness trend or a gym culture obsession. It's a biological necessity. Something your body was literally designed for. If you don't challenge your muscles, your body begins to interpret them as unnecessary, and anything the body deems unnecessary, it gets rid of. That's how the system works. It's efficient, but if you're not careful, that efficiency becomes degeneration. One of the core principles in physiology is the concept of use it or lose it. Your muscles are in constant communication with your nervous system, your endocrine system, and your overall metabolic health. If you're not using them with intentional load-bearing movements, if you're not stressing those tissues, you are sending the signal that those muscles are no longer needed. Over time, the body complies by breaking them down and reallocating resources elsewhere. That's why resistance training, particularly progressive resistance training, is non-negotiable. Now, progressive doesn't mean you have to lift heavier and heavy weights every single session. It means your muscles need to face challenges consistently. This could be through increased resistance, more repetitions, slower tempo, or even reduced rest periods. The key is adaptation. You need to trigger and that response, when done properly, is hypertrophy, growth. But even more importantly, it's maintenance. It's the halting of atrophy. The good news that this doesn't require daily trips to the gym or becoming a bodybuilder. Research consistently shows that 2 full body strength training sessions per week are enough to stimulate muscle protein synthesis and significantly reduce the risk of age-related muscle loss, also known as sarcopenia. This is especially true if those sessions involve compound movements, exercises that recruit multiple muscle groups across more than one joint. Think of squats, deadlifts, pull-ups, rows, overhead presses, and push-ups. These aren't just exercises, they're movements that mimic real life. They train your body to stay functional, stable, and strong. What's happening under the hood is fascinating. When you contract a muscle against resistance, you're activating mechanoreceptors inside the muscle fibers. These receptors detect tension and send signals to the nucleus of the muscle cells. That triggers the activation of genes responsible for muscle repair and growth. It also initiates a cascade involving the mTOR pathway, one of the most important regulators of muscle building. Without that trigger, your mTOR pathway stays quiet, and when it stays quiet for too long, muscle breakdown begins to outpace muscle repair. That's when the decline begins, not just in muscle mass, but in strength, energy, mobility, and metabolic health. There's also a neurological side to this. Resistance training increases the connection between your motor neurons and muscle fibers, improving the efficiency of neural drive. You're not just growing muscle tissue, you're upgrading the software that tells your muscles how to fire. This is critical for coordination, balance, and injury prevention, especially as we age. It literally keeps the mind-body loop sharp and responsive. When that connection weakens, falls happen, slips become serious. Tasks that were once easy become difficult, and for many people, that's the beginning of a downhill slope. So how should you train? If you're new to this, you don't need to overthink it. Begin with your body weight, learn proper mechanics, add resistance bands, dumbbells, or even just tempo changes. The key is progressive overload, finding a way to make the muscles work slightly harder than they did before. For more experienced individuals, barbell or machine-based resistance is excellent. Just ensure you're training close to muscular failure. That's where the signal for adaptation is loudest. You don't need to reach absolute failure every time. That's not sustainable, but stopping 5 or 6 reps short of failure won't give you the result you're aiming for either. The sweet spot is the edge of what you can do without sacrificing form. And let's talk about frequency. Twice a week is the minimum effective dose. If you're recovering well, adding a 3rd session can provide even greater benefits, especially if you're targeting specific weaknesses or working on structural balance. But quality matters more than quantity. 2 high-quality sessions where you're dialed in, focused, and challenging your muscles are better than 5 sessions where you're just going through the motions. A lot of people worry about rest and recovery, rightfully so. You do need to allow time for the muscle to rebuild. That's where growth occurs, not during the workout, but after it. But let's be clear, inactivity isn't recovery. Recovery is active. It includes nutrition, sleep, hydration, stress management, and yes, movement. Even on your rest days, light activity like walking, mobility, work, or low-impact cardio can aid recovery by promoting blood flow and reducing stiffness. Resistance training also has systemic benefits. It improves insulin sensitivity, helping your body use carbohydrates more efficiently. It supports testosterone production and reduces chronic inflammation inflammation, and perhaps most important for those who are aging, it helps prevent frailty. Frailty isn't just weakness, it's the loss of physical confidence. And once someone loses the belief that they can move freely or stand up from the ground unassisted, their world begins to shrink. Resistance training keeps that door open. It preserves independence. So no matter where you are in your fitness journey, know this: lifting weights, pushing against resistance, moving your body with intention. These are not optional if your goal is to eliminate muscle loss. They are the foundation. They are the difference between decline and durability. You're either training for strength or training for weakness. Every day, your body makes a choice based on your actions. Let it choose strength. Let's talk about nutrition, specifically protein, because no matter how hard you train, if you're not getting the right amount of protein consistently, you're not going to build or maintain muscle. In fact, what you're doing is sending a mixed signal to your body. You're asking it to grow with training, but you're not providing the raw materials to support that message. And over time, that disconnect leads to muscle breakdown rather than growth. Muscle is made of protein. That's not a metaphor. It's a physiological fact. The building blocks of muscle tissue are amino acids, and the body relies on a constant supply of these to repair and build new muscle fibers. Every time you train, you create tiny tears in your muscle. That's a good thing. That's what stimulates adaptation. But those micro tears need to be repaired with amino acids, primarily from dietary protein. Without that supply, your body can't rebuild effectively. And if you consistently fall short, it starts pulling amino acids from existing muscle tissue to meet other needs, like supporting organ function or producing enzymes and hormones. That's where muscle loss begins. Not from a lack of effort, but from a lack of fuel. A lot of people underestimate how much protein they really need. The old recommendations, around 0.8 grams per kilogram of body weight, are based on minimum survival levels, not optimal performance or muscle preservation. If your goal is to eliminate muscle loss, you need more than that. You need enough to consistently activate muscle protein synthesis throughout the day. Research is very clear on these. Somewhere be 1.6 to 2.2 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight per day is the sweet spot for most people looking to maintain or grow muscle mass. If you're older or you're in a calorie deficit, you may need even more. And it's not just about the total amount. Yeah. Timing and distribution matter too. You don't want to load all your protein in one giant meal at night. That's a common mistake. The body has a limited capacity for muscle protein synthesis at one time. What you want to do is spread your protein intake evenly across 3 to 4 meals throughout the day. This keeps amino acids consistently available in your bloodstream, giving your body multiple opportunities to stimulate muscle repair and growth. Each of those meals should include at least 30 to 40 grams of high-quality protein, depending on your size and activity level. Now let's talk about protein quality. Not all proteins are created equal. The most effective proteins for muscle retention and growth are those that are complete, meaning they contain all 9 essential amino acids. Among these, leucine plays a critical role. Leucine is the amino acid that actually triggers the anabolic switch in your muscle cells. You can think of it as the spark that lights the fire. Without enough leucine, muscle protein synthesis simply doesn't activate at full capacity. This is why sources like eggs, lean meats, poultry, fish, and dairy products, especially whey protein, are so effective. They're rich in leucine and rapidly absorbed, making them ideal choices post-workout or first thing in the morning when your body is in a catabolic state. Plant proteins can work too, but you need to be more intentional about combining them to make sure you're getting the full amino acid profile. It's doable, but it requires more volume and variety. Protein is also the most satiating macronutrient. That means it helps control hunger, reduce cravings, and maintain stable energy throughout the day. If you're trying to lose fat while preserving muscle, protein is your best ally. It supports a caloric deficit without triggering excessive muscle breakdown, which is a common risk when people slash calories without adjusting their protein upward. It's also not ignore the role of protein in recovery. After a resistance training session, your muscles are more sensitive to nutrients. This is often referred to as the anabolic window. While the window isn't as short as we once thought, it can last several hours. It's still smart to consume a protein meal or shake within about 1 to 2 hours post-training. This maximizes the adaptive response. Pairing that protein with some carbohydrates helps replenish glycogen and further supports recovery. Now, if you're someone who struggles to hit your protein targets with whole foods alone, supplementation can help. Whey protein isolate is one of the most effective and convenient options. It's fast digesting, high in leucine, and mixes easily. You can use it in a morning shake, post-workout, or even as part of a meal to boost your protein intake. Just make sure it's part of a broader strategy. Supplements should support, not replace, whole food nutrition. One of the most overlooked aspects of this conversation is consistency. Getting enough protein one day a week isn't going to cut it. Muscle tissue is highly dynamic. Your body is constantly balancing between anabolism building up and catabolism breaking down. If you want to stay on the positive side of that equation, you need to give your body a steady daily signal that muscle is valuable. That signal comes from movement and nutrition working together. Resistance training is the mechanical signal. Protein is the chemical signal. One without the other is incomplete. And finally, there's a psychological aspect to this. When people start dialing in their protein intake, they often notice an increase in energy, sharper focus, better appetite control, and stronger workouts. That creates a positive feedback loop. You eat better, you feel stronger, you train harder, and your results improve. It becomes self-reinforcing, but it starts with getting intentional about your protein take and treating it as a non-negotiable part of your daily plan. So if you're looking to eliminate muscle loss, not just slow it down, but stop it in its tracks, you have to own your protein intake. Not just occasionally, not just after workouts, but every single day. Make it a foundation, not an afterthought, because what you feed your body, you feed your future. One of the most underestimated factors in preventing muscle loss is something we often overlook because it happens when we're not awake, and that's sleep. If you're trying to maintain or build muscle and you're not prioritizing sleep, you're fighting an uphill battle that you will not win over the long term. The body does not grow when you're training, it grows when you're recovering. And the deepest, most meaningful recovery doesn't happen in the gym or during a post-workout meal. It happens during high-quality sleep. Sleep is not just rest. It's a biological necessity that allows the body to enter a regenerative state. During sleep, especially the deep stages of non-REM sleep, growth hormone is released in significant pulses. This hormone plays a direct role in muscle repair and growth. When your sleep is cut short or fragmented, those pulses are smaller and less effective. You might be training hard and eating right, but without that overnight hormonal support, you're simply not creating the internal conditions necessary for muscle preservation. Worse, you may be accelerating muscle degradation, especially as you age. The research on this is very clear. Even just a few nights of inadequate sleep can significantly reduce your body's ability to synthesize muscle protein. That's not a hypothetical effect, it's measurable. And what's more concerning is that chronic sleep restriction can lead to an increase in cortisol, a catabolic hormone that actually breaks muscle tissue down. So now you've got a double impacting, less muscle building and more muscle wasting. That's not where you want to be, particularly if you're training regularly or trying to hold on to lean mass as you age. Sleep is also where memory consolidation, motor learning, and skill refinement occur. If you're doing resistance training, skill acquisition and neuromuscular coordination are a big part of progress. You're not just lifting weights, you're training your nervous system to recruit muscle fibers more efficiently. That adaptation is heavily dependent on sleep, particularly REM sleep. Without enough of it, your workouts feel harder, your recovery drags, and your performance stalls. You may even become more injury prone because of impaired motor control and delayed reaction times. What's fascinating is how sleep affects appetite, energy regulation, and overall metabolism. Poor sleep dysregulates the hunger hormones ghrelin and leptin. When you're sleep deprived, ghrelin increases, making you feel hungrier, and leptin decreases, so you never quite feel satisfied. That leads to overeating, usually of high-carb, low-protein foods, which not only disrupts body composition, but also makes it harder to hit the nutritional targets we just talked about. You wake up tired, reach for convenience foods, and now you're not recovering well or fueling your body optimally. It becomes a vicious cycle. On top of that, testosterone levels drop when sleep is insufficient. And we're not talking about years of poor sleep. We're talking about a week. Just 1 week of 5 hours of sleep per night reduced testosterone levels in men by up to 10-15%. Testosterone is critical for maintaining muscle mass in both men and women. So if you're serious about preserving your muscle tissue, sleep has to be treated with the same level of commitment as your workouts or your nutrition. So how do you improve sleep quality in a practical, actionable way? First, consistency is key. Go to bed and wake up at the same time every day, even on weekends. Your body thrives on rhythm. Circadian rhythm, to be precise. When that rhythm is consistent, your sleep becomes deeper, your hormonal cycles align, and your overall recovery improves. Second, control your exposure to light. Your body's internal clock is regulated primarily by light and darkness. Exposing your eyes to natural sunlight early in the morning, ideally within the first 30-60 minutes after waking, helps anchor your circadian rhythm. That morning light sets a timer that influences the release of melatonin about 14-16 hours later, helping you fall asleep faster and sleep more deeply. In the evening, the goal is the opposite, reduce artificial light exposure, especially blue light from screens. When your eyes are hit with artificial light after sunset, it tricks your brain into thinking it's still daytime, which delays melatonin production and disrupts the onset of sleep. Try dimming lights, using warm light sources, and shutting down screens at least an hour before bed. If you need to use screens, wear blue light blocking glasses to reduce the impact. Next, create an environment that is conducive to deep sleep. That means a cool room. Around 65 to 67 degrees Fahrenheit is ideal. Your core body temperature needs to drop slightly in order to initiate sleep, so a cool environment helps facilitate that shift. It also means minimizing noise, using blackout curtains to eliminate external light, and keeping electronics away from the bed. Your bedroom should be a cue for rest, not stimulation. Avoid caffeine late in the day. Caffeine has a half-life of about 5 to 6 hours, but its impact can last longer in sensitive individuals. Even if you fall asleep, caffeine can reduce the amount of deep sleep you get, leading to more fragmented and less restorative rest. Try cutting off caffeine by early afternoon to give your system enough time to clear it out. Alcohol, while it may make you feel sleepy, also disrupts deep sleep and REM sleep. It fragments sleep architecture and can leave you waking up groggy, even if you sleep through the night. If muscle retention and recovery are a goal, alcohol should be used sparingly and not close to bedtime. Finally, don't overlook stress. High levels of stress activate the sympathetic nervous system and raise cortisol levels, which can interfere with both falling asleep and staying asleep. Incorporating relaxation techniques in the evening, whether it's deep breathing, meditation, journaling, or even a simple walk after dinner, can help shift you into a more parasympathetic, restful state. That shift is crucial for high-quality sleep and therefore critical for muscle recovery. We can do everything right during the day, train intelligently, eat well, hydrate, take supplements. But if we don't sleep, we leave most of the benefits on the table. Sleep is the reset button. It's where your body repairs, your brain organizes, and your hormones recalibrate. If you want to hold on to your muscle and perform at your best, it's not just about how hard you work. It's also about how well you recover. Because your growth doesn't happen in the gym. It happens in the quiet hours when your eyes are closed and your body is finally allowed to heal. When we talk about eliminating muscle loss, especially as we age or go through periods of stress, there's a powerful tool we often ignore. Not because it's ineffective, but because it seems too simple. That's resistance training. Lifting weights using resistance bands or engaging in any form of strength training isn't just for athletes or bodybuilders. It's foundational for everyone who wants to preserve muscle, support metabolic health, and increase longevity. The body is constantly adapting to the stress you place on it. If you do nothing, the muscles begin to atrophy. It's a principle called use it or lose it, and the body doesn't wait around. Especially past the age of 30, we start to lose muscle mass gradually. This process, known as sarcopenia, accelerates every decade unless we intervene. And the most effective intervention, more than any pill, supplement, or diet tweak, is progressive resistance training. You don't even have to lift heavy. You just have to lift consistently. One of the core reasons resistance training works so well is that it sends a mechanical and neurological signal to your muscle fibers. We need you. That signal turns on pathways in your cells, particularly a process called muscle protein synthesis. When that process is activated regularly, your body holds onto muscle tissue. Without that stimulus, especially during calorie restriction or illness, muscle starts to break down. The body is efficient. It doesn't maintain what it doesn't use. What's remarkable is how responsive our muscles are even later in life. There are studies showing that people in their 70s, 80s, even 90s can gain strength and increase muscle size through resistance training. This isn't theory. It's measurable fact. So if you're in your 40s or 50s and thinking it's too late, it absolutely is not. In fact, it's the perfect time to start. The earlier you build a foundation of strength, the more muscle reserve you have to carry through the decades ahead. And it's not just about aesthetics. Muscle is an endocrine organ. It secretes molecules called myokines when you train, and those molecules have profound effects on the brain immune system and metabolism. They help regulate insulin sensitivity, reduce systemic inflammation, and even support brain-derived neurotrophic factor BDNF, which plays a role in mood and cognitive function. So, when you engage in resistance training, you're not just preserving your physique, you're protecting your entire system. Now, the key is consistency and progression. You don't need to spend hours in the gym. In fact, 30 to 4 sessions per week to 45 minutes each can be incredibly effective if done right. Focus on compound movements, things like squats, push lunge ups, pull-ups, rows, and presses. These movements engage multiple muscle groups, stimulate a larger hormonal response, and mimic real-life patterns of movement that keep you functional and injury-resistant. Don't be afraid to use weights that challenge you. A weight that feels comfortable may not be providing enough stimulus for growth. You should be aiming for the last few reps of each set to feel difficult, even if your form remains controlled. That level of effort is what signals to your body this muscle needs to stay. Without that challenge, the stimulus is too weak to protect your muscle mass. Rest and recovery between sets matter too, depending on your goal. Strength versus hypertrophy, you can manipulate rest periods. But for muscle maintenance and growth, resting 60 to 90 seconds between sets is a great sweet spot. It allows you to maintain intensity without sacrificing volume. You might be wondering, what if I've been inactive for years? years. That's completely okay. The beauty of resistance training is that you can always start where you are. You can begin with bodyweight exercises or use resistance bands. Then, as your strength and confidence grow, you can progress to free weights or machines. It's not about where you start. It's about not staying in the same place. Progress is the goal, not perfection. Resistance training also improves bone density. This is a critical benefit, especially for women post-menopause and men over 50, as bone loss accelerates with age. When you load the muscles, you're also loading the bones. That mechanical tension stimulates osteoblast activity, which helps strengthen bones and reduces your risk of fractures, falls, and long-term disability. There's also a mental component here. Engaging in resistance training improves mood, reduces symptoms of anxiety and depression, and increases your sense of agency. That feeling of getting stronger isn't just physical, it's deeply psychological. It reminds your nervous system that you're capable of adaptation, that stress is something you can train through, not just react to. That mindset, resilience, is a powerful defense against the emotional strain that often comes with aging or major life transitions. And if you're dealing with an injury or illness, know that resistance training can be modified to fit your situation. Rehab programs often include strength work for a reason. Targeted movement helps accelerate healing. With the guidance of a trained professional, you can work around injuries and continue to stimulate muscle fibers without overloading the joint or injuring the tissue. In fact, an activity during recovery can do more harm than good. Controlled movement, when executed correctly, is medicine. Also, don't get caught up in the idea that cardio alone is enough. While cardiovascular exercise is essential for heart health, it doesn't preserve muscle the same way resistance training does. And in many cases, excessive cardio, especially in a calorie deficit, can actually increase muscle loss. It's about balance. Yes, walk, run, swim, or cycle. But make sure you're also doing some form of resistance training regularly. It's that combination that protects your muscle, your metabolic health, and your energy levels. Finally, remember this: every time you choose to move weight through space, you're telling your body. One of the biggest misconceptions people have when it comes to building or preserving muscle is that it's all about how hard you train. While effort, intensity, and consistency in your workouts are important, there's something even more fundamental: your sleep. And it's surprising how often this gets overlooked. You could have the perfect training program, the most dialed-in nutrition plan, and a supplement stack built by top experts. But if your sleep is broken or insufficient, you're leaving a massive portion of your potential for muscle retention and growth untapped. Sleep is not passive. It's one of the most active biological states your body experiences. While you rest, your brain is processing information, your immune system is rebalancing, and most critically for this discussion, your muscle tissue is repairing. Every time you lift weights or engage in resistance training, you're creating tiny microtears in the muscle fibers. That's not the growth process. That's just the stimulus. The actual repair, the rebuilding, the increase in muscle size and strength happens during deep, high-quality sleep. One of the most important hormones for muscle repair and growth is growth hormone, and the majority of it is secreted during deep, slow-wave sleep in the early part of the night. That's your window. If your sleep is shallow, inconsistent, or cut short, especially in those first few hours, you miss that spike in growth hormone. And when you miss it, you reduce your body's ability to recover and adapt to the training you've done. Another major player is testosterone. Both men and women produce it, and it's essential for maintaining muscle mass. Studies show that even 1 week of sleep deprivation, say reducing sleep from 8 hours to 5, can cause a significant drop in testosterone levels. That's just 1 week. Now imagine the compounded effect of chronic sleep loss over months or years. Your ability to hold on to lean tissue diminishes, your energy tanks, your mood shifts, and motivation to train plummets. It's a downward spiral. There's also cortisol, a stress hormone. When sleep is inadequate or fragmented, cortisol levels remain elevated longer into the day. High cortisol can have catabolic effects. It promotes the breakdown of muscle tissue, especially if your protein intake isn't optimal. It also interferes with insulin sensitivity, which means your ability to partition nutrients into muscle rather than fat is compromised. So now you're not only losing muscle, but storing more fat. That's not a hormonal environment conducive to performance or longevity. But when you sleep well, 7 to 9 hours of uninterrupted, quality sleep each night, you flip that switch. You lower evening cortisol, increase growth hormone and testosterone naturally. You enhance insulin sensitivity and nutrient absorption. You even elevate your mood, your discipline, and your decision-making ability the next day, which reinforces the habits that support muscle maintenance, things like choosing the right foods, sticking to your training routine, and managing stress more effectively. So how do you optimize sleep specifically to support muscle recovery and prevent muscle loss? First, anchor your wake-up time. The circadian rhythm, your body's internal clock, relies more heavily on when you wake up than when you go to bed. If you get up at the same time every day, even on weekends, you start setting a rhythm that aligns your body's hormone cycles, appetite cues, and energy levels predictably. That rhythm is critical for ensuring your deepest sleep comes early in the night, when growth hormone secretion is most potent. Second, get sunlight in your eyes early in the day. This is a non-negotiable if you want to set the timing of your circadian clock correctly. Morning light exposure increases serotonin, which later converts to melatonin, the hormone that tells your body it's time to sleep. Without that light signal, your brain doesn't know when to start producing melatonin and your sleep quality suffers. Third, limit artificial light, especially blue light at night. That means dimming overhead lights after sunset, using night mode on screens, and if possible, wearing light blocking glasses in the evening. This helps increase natural melatonin production and signals to your brain that it's time to wind down. If you're stimulating your eyes with bright screens right up until bed, you're telling your body to stay alert when it should be transitioning into a recovery state. Fourth, keep your sleep environment cold, quiet, and dark. Your core body temperature needs to drop to initiate deep sleep. If the room is too warm, or if there's too much noise or light, your brain stays on alert. Even subtle disruptions, like a dog barking outside or street light filtering through the window, can pull you out of the deepest stages of sleep where muscle repair is happening. You might not fully wake up, but your brain never hits that anabolic state it needs to rebuild. Fifth, avoid caffeine late in the day. Caffeine has a half-life of about 6 hours, which means that even if you have your last cup of coffee at 3 p.m., a significant amount is still circulating in your system by 9 p.m. And caffeine blocks adenosine, the molecule that builds up over the day to make you feel sleepy. Even if you fall asleep easily, caffeine can reduce the amount of deep sleep you get, which again compromises your muscle recovery. Now, for those who struggle with falling asleep, it's worth considering a wind down routine that includes both physiological and psychological cues. This could be as simple as turning off electronics an hour before bed, doing some light stretching or breathing exercises, and journaling to offload stress. These routines aren't just rituals. They're neurological signals that prepare your nervous system to shift from sympathetic, alert states to parasympathetic, restorative ones. That's when your body heals. And perhaps the most powerful motivation to prioritize sleep comes from how immediate the benefits are. You don't have to wait weeks or months. One good night of sleep can improve your mood, increase your strength in the gym, reduce soreness, and sharpen your mind. Stack those nights, and you create an upward spiral of performance, recovery, and health. If you want to eliminate muscle loss, don't just think about what you do in the gym. Think about what you do when you close your eyes at night. That's where the real transformation begins.